Picture this. It's Christmas Eve, 2019. Snow falls gently on a military training facility in North Carolina. Inside, the most elite soldiers America has ever produced, Navy SEALs, are struggling with something that should be second nature to them. Their shots are missing. Their confidence is shaken. Their reputation as the world's deadliest marksman is on the line. Then walks in someone they never expected to learn from. Not another grizzled veteran. Not a legendary sniper. But a 28-year-old woman who had never even held a military-grade weapon until 6 months ago. Her name was Sarah Chun, and she was about to do something that would leave these hardened warriors speechless. What happened next wasn't just about perfect aim or steady hands. It was about a young woman who refused to let anyone tell her she didn't belong, a Christmas Eve that turned into legend, and 10 consecutive shots that proved sometimes the most unlikely person can hit the most impossible target. This is the true story of how Sarah Chun went from a small-town librarian to the marksman who taught Navy SEALs what they thought they already knew about precision, perseverance, and the power of never giving up. Get ready for a story that will make you believe in Christmas miracles again. Sarah Chun had always been different, though most people in the small town of Millbrook, North Carolina, never bothered to notice. Every morning at exactly 7:30, she would unlock the heavy wooden doors of the public library, flip on the fluorescent lights, and settle into what most folks assumed was the most boring job in town. But Sarah harbored secrets that would have shocked every person who saw her as just the quiet girl behind the checkout desk. Growing up as the daughter of immigrants, Sarah learned early that precision mattered. Her father, Dr. James Chun, was a renowned surgeon who immigrated from Taiwan in the 1980s. Her mother, Lisa, had been a mathematics professor before dedicating herself to raising Sarah and her younger brother, David. In their household, excellence wasn't just expected, it was the only option. When Sarah was 8 years old, her father taught her to hold chopsticks properly. When she struggled, he made her practice picking up individual grains of rice for an hour every day until her movements became fluid and exact. The Chun family lived in a modest 2-story house on Maple Street, where Sarah spent her childhood surrounded by books, equations written on napkins during dinner conversations, and the constant pressure to achieve. Her parents had sacrificed everything for the American dream, working double shifts and saving every penny to give their children opportunities they never had. Sarah felt the weight of their expectations like a backpack full of stones, growing heavier with each passing year. But Sarah had a secret that she kept hidden from everyone, including her family. While other kids her age were playing video games or hanging out at the mall, Sarah was in her basement, practicing with a pellet gun her grandfather had given her before he passed away. It was an old Daisy Red Ryder BB gun, nothing fancy, but in Sarah's hands, it became something magical. She would set up targets made from paper plates and tin cans, spending hours perfecting her aim. The basement became her sanctuary, the only place where the expectations of others faded away and she could focus purely on the relationship between her breath, her heartbeat, and the target. Her grandfather, who had served in the Korean War, had been the one to first notice Sarah's natural ability. During his visits when Sarah was 12, he would watch her hit bottle caps from across their backyard with a makeshift slingshot, never missing. He pulled her aside one day and told her something that would stick with her forever. "Sarah," he said, his voice carrying the weight of experience, "you have a gift. But gifts are only valuable if you choose to develop them. Most people are afraid to pursue what they're truly good at because it might take them somewhere they never expected to go." High school proved challenging for Sarah in ways that had nothing to do with academics. She excelled in every class, maintaining a perfect GPA while her classmates struggled through basic algebra. But socially, she remained on the outside looking in. Her peers saw her as the bookish Asian girl who always had the right answers, but never seemed to have fun. They didn't know that she spent her weekends at a private shooting range 40 miles away, having convinced the owner, an old Vietnam veteran named Pete Morrison, to let her practice in exchange for helping him organize his inventory. Pete became Sarah's unofficial mentor during those formative years. He recognized something in her that even she didn't fully understand yet. Her shooting wasn't just accurate, it was instinctive. She had an ability to read wind patterns, adjust for distance, and maintain composure under pressure that he had only seen in seasoned military snipers. But Pete also noticed something else about Sarah that worried him. She was using shooting as an escape from the pressure at home rather than embracing it as a potential path forward. When Sarah graduated as valedictorian, everyone expected her to follow her brother David to Stanford, where he was studying pre-med. Her parents had already planned her future, for years at an elite university, followed by graduate school, and eventually a prestigious career in medicine or law. But Sarah had other ideas. She announced at dinner one evening that she wanted to take a gap year to figure things out. The silence that followed was deafening. Her father's chopsticks stopped halfway to his mouth, and her mother's expression shifted from confusion to disappointment in a matter of seconds. The argument that followed lasted 3 days. Her parents couldn't understand why their brilliant daughter would want to waste time when she could be building toward a successful career. They had sacrificed so much for her education, and now she wanted to throw it away for what? To work at the local library? Sarah tried to explain that she needed time to explore her interests, to figure out who she was outside of their expectations, but her words fell on deaf ears. Eventually, Sarah did what she had always done. She found a compromise that satisfied everyone while quietly pursuing her own goals. She enrolled at the local community college and took a part-time job at the library, promising her parents she would transfer to a 4-year university after completing her associate degree. What she didn't tell them was that she was also enrolling in evening shooting courses at a regional training facility, using money she had saved from her library job to pay for professional instruction. The Millbrook Public Library became Sarah's second home during this period. Mrs. Henderson, the head librarian, was a kind woman in her 60s who recognized that Sarah's organizational skills and attention to detail were exactly what the aging institution needed. Sarah threw herself into the work with characteristic precision, creating new filing systems, digitizing old records, and helping patrons find resources with an efficiency that impressed everyone who worked with her. But it was during the quiet hours, when the library was closed and she was alone with her thoughts, that Sarah would research military history, ballistics, and marksmanship techniques. She checked out every book they had on the subject, studied the biographies of famous snipers, and researched the training methods used by elite military units. She was particularly fascinated by the psychological aspects of precision shooting, how the mind needed to be trained just as much as the body to achieve consistent accuracy. Her evening training sessions became more intense as she progressed through different levels of instruction. Sarah learned to shoot from various positions, in different weather conditions, and with various types of firearms. Her instructors were amazed by her rapid improvement and natural ability to adapt to new challenges. Within 6 months, she was outperforming students who had been training for years. The turning point came during her 19th birthday party, a small gathering at her family's house with just a few relatives and family friends. Her uncle Mike, who had served in the Marines 20 years earlier, was telling stories about his military service when he mentioned that he still had his old service pistol locked away in a safe. Sarah's ears perked up, and she asked if she could see it. Her uncle, thinking she was just curious, agreed to show her the weapon. When they went to his car to retrieve the pistol from its locked case, Sarah asked if she could hold it. Her uncle hesitated but eventually agreed, figuring there was no harm in letting her examine an unloaded weapon. The moment Sarah's hands wrapped around the grip, something clicked into place. The weight felt perfect, the balance was exactly right, and when she raised it to sight down the barrel, her uncle noticed something that made his blood run cold. Her stance was perfect. Her grip was textbook. Her breathing was controlled and steady. This wasn't the posture of someone who had just picked up a firearm for the first time. This was the stance of someone who had spent considerable time training. That evening, after the other guests had left, Uncle Mike confronted Sarah about her obvious familiarity with firearms. Initially defensive, Sarah eventually opened up about her years of secret training and her dreams of pursuing competitive shooting or even military service. Uncle Mike listened without judgment, recognizing in his niece the same passion for precision and excellence that had driven him during his own military career. It was Uncle Mike who suggested that Sarah consider joining the National Guard as a way to pursue her interest in marksmanship while still maintaining a civilian career. He explained that many Guard units offered specialized training opportunities and that her obvious talent would be recognized and developed by experienced instructors. The idea intrigued Sarah, but she knew her parents would never approve of their daughter joining the military in any capacity. The conversation with her parents went exactly as Sarah had expected. Her father was horrified at the suggestion, viewing military service as dangerous and beneath someone with Sarah's intellectual capabilities. Her mother worried about the physical demands and the potential for deployment to dangerous locations. Both parents saw Sarah's interest in firearms as a dangerous hobby that needed to be discouraged rather than developed. But Sarah had reached a point in her life where she could no longer ignore her true passion to satisfy others' expectations. At 20 years old, she made the decision that would change everything. Without telling her parents, she visited the local National Guard recruiting office and spoke with Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez about opportunities for someone with her background and interests. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez was initially skeptical when this soft-spoken librarian walked into her office claiming to have advanced marksmanship skills. But something about Sarah's quiet confidence and the way she described her training experience suggested she wasn't just another civilian with unrealistic expectations about military service. Rodriguez agreed to arrange for Sarah to participate in an informal shooting evaluation at the Guard's training facility the following weekend. That Saturday morning, Sarah told her parents she was going to visit a friend for the day and drove the 2 hours to Camp Green, the National Guard facility where her future would be determined. She had barely slept the night before, knowing that this test would either validate years of secret training or prove that her dreams were nothing more than delusion. The testing began with basic safety protocols and weapon familiarization, procedures that Sarah completed flawlessly. Then came the shooting evaluation itself, starting with simple stationary targets at close range and gradually increasing in difficulty. With each shot, Sarah felt more confident, more in control, more like the person she was meant to be. By the end of the morning, Sarah had fired 50 rounds at various distances and conditions. When the targets were collected and scored, even the experienced military instructors had to double-check their calculations. Sarah had achieved a 98% accuracy rate, missing only one shot when a sudden gust of wind caught her off guard during the longest distance portion of the test. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez pulled Sarah aside afterward and asked her directly about her background and training. When Sarah explained her years of self-directed study and practice, Rodriguez realized she was looking at someone with exceptional natural ability who had somehow managed to develop professional-level skills without formal military training. That afternoon, Sarah signed her enlistment papers for the North Carolina National Guard, committing to serve as a designated marksman while continuing her civilian career at the library. The 6-year commitment felt like the first truly independent decision she had ever made, scary and exhilarating in equal measure. The drive home that evening was filled with a mixture of excitement and dread. Sarah knew she would have to tell her parents about her decision eventually, but she wanted to complete her basic training first, to prove that she could succeed in this environment before facing their inevitable disappointment. For the next 3 months, Sarah lived a double life. During the week, she continued her routine at the library, helping patrons find books and maintaining the facade of the quiet, bookish girl everyone expected her to be. On weekends, she traveled to various training facilities for her Guard obligations, learning military protocols, team tactics, and advanced marksmanship techniques that pushed her abilities to new levels. Her trainers were amazed by Sarah's progress and natural leadership abilities. Despite being one of the smallest members of her unit, she consistently outperformed larger, stronger soldiers in every area that required precision and mental focus. Her shooting scores were so consistently high that instructors began using her targets as examples for other trainees. But it was during a particularly challenging night training exercise that Sarah truly proved her exceptional abilities. The scenario involved neutralizing multiple targets in complete darkness using night vision equipment while other team members provided cover and support. Most soldiers struggled with the technical demands and stress of the exercise, but Sarah moved through the course like she had been doing it her entire life. When the exercise ended and scores were calculated, Sarah had achieved something that impressed even the most experienced trainers: perfect accuracy under extremely difficult conditions. But, more importantly, She had demonstrated the calm leadership and tactical thinking that suggested she could excel at much higher levels of military training. It was then that Master Sergeant William Hayes, a 20-year veteran who had served with various special operations units, recommended that Sarah be considered for advanced marksmanship training with specialized units. He had seen thousands of soldiers come through training programs, but Sarah possessed a rare combination of natural ability, mental toughness, and teachable spirit that marked her as exceptional. The recommendation would eventually lead to an invitation that would change Sarah's life forever: the opportunity to participate in a joint training exercise with Navy SEAL units, designed to cross-train Guard members with elite special operations personnel. It was an honor rarely extended to part-time soldiers, and never before offered to someone with Sarah's limited experience. As Sarah sat in her car outside the library after receiving the invitation, she realized that everything in her life had led to this moment. All those hours in her basement with the old BB gun, all the secret training sessions, all the compromises and hidden dreams had prepared her for an opportunity she never could have imagined. Tomorrow, she would finally tell her parents about her military service. Next month, she would report to a training facility where she would work alongside the most elite soldiers in the American military. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that her grandfather had been right. Gifts are only valuable if you choose to develop them, even if they take you somewhere you never expected to go. The conversation with her parents went worse than Sarah had imagined. Her father, Dr. Chun, stared at her across the dinner table with an expression she had never seen before. Not anger, not disappointment, but something deeper that cut through her like a knife. Her mother began crying before Sarah had finished explaining about her National Guard service, and the sound of those tears would haunt Sarah for weeks afterward. "You threw away everything we worked for," her father said quietly, his voice carrying more pain than any shouting could have conveyed. "We came to this country with nothing. Your mother cleaned offices at night while finishing her degree. I worked 18-hour days during my residency. We did this so you could have choices we never had. And you chose to play soldier instead of using your mind." Sarah tried to explain that she wasn't throwing anything away, that she could still pursue her education while serving in the Guard, that she had found something she was genuinely gifted at. But her words seemed to make things worse. Her parents saw her military service as a betrayal of their sacrifices and their values. In their minds, smart people didn't need to carry guns to make a difference in the world. The weeks that followed were some of the most difficult in Sarah's young life. Her parents spoke to her in clipped, formal sentences when they spoke to her at all. Family dinners became tense affairs where conversation focused solely on practical matters. Her brother David called from Stanford to express his own disappointment, explaining that he was having trouble defending her choices to their extended family. But Sarah had made her decision, and as the reporting date for the joint training exercise approached, she found herself both terrified and more excited than she had ever been about anything. The invitation to participate in cross-training with Navy SEAL units was unprecedented for someone at her level, and she knew that dozens of more experienced soldiers would have jumped at the chance she was being given. Fort Bragg in December was a study in controlled chaos. Sarah arrived at the sprawling North Carolina facility on a cold Monday morning, carrying a single duffel bag and trying not to look as intimidated as she felt. The base housed multiple elite units, including elements of the 82nd Airborne Division, Special Forces groups, and various other specialized commands. The sheer scale of the operation was overwhelming for someone accustomed to the quiet rhythms of small-town library work. The joint training program was housed in a separate facility within the base, designed to simulate real-world environments where different military units might need to work together during complex operations. Sarah was part of a group of 12 Guard members who had been selected for the program, though she quickly realized that she was by far the least experienced among them. Her fellow trainees included a helicopter pilot with 8 years of service, a communications specialist who had deployed twice to Afghanistan, and a medic who had worked with Special Forces units in Iraq. Sarah felt like she was pretending to belong in a group where everyone else had earned their place through years of proven service. The Navy SEALs who would be participating in the exercise arrived on Tuesday, and Sarah got her first glimpse of the men she would be training alongside. They moved with a confidence and precision that was immediately apparent, even in routine activities like checking in and organizing their gear. These were warriors who had proven themselves in the most demanding circumstances imaginable, and Sarah wondered what they would think when they discovered that one of their training partners was a part-time librarian. Team Leader Chief Petty Officer Marcus Thompson was a 12-year SEAL veteran who had participated in operations across 3 continents. At first glance, he appeared to be exactly what Sarah expected from popular culture portrayals of elite soldiers: tall, muscular, intense, and slightly intimidating. But during the initial briefing, she noticed something that surprised her. When he spoke about the training objectives, his focus wasn't on physical dominance or aggressive tactics, but on precision, patience, and the mental aspects of performance under pressure. The training schedule was unlike anything Sarah had experienced before. Days began at 500 hours with physical conditioning that pushed her to her limits. She was easily the smallest person in the group, and exercises that challenged even experienced soldiers left her exhausted. But she refused to quit or ask for modified standards, pushing through workouts that left her muscles screaming and her lungs burning. Physical conditioning was followed by classroom instruction covering topics like advanced tactical planning, urban warfare principles, and the psychology of high-stress decision-making. Sarah found herself completely absorbed by these sessions, taking detailed notes and asking questions that impressed even the instructors. Her academic background gave her advantages in analyzing complex scenarios and understanding the theoretical frameworks behind tactical decisions. But it was during weapons training that Sarah first began to distinguish herself from her peers. The initial marksmanship evaluation was designed to establish baseline skill levels for each participant, allowing instructors to customize training programs accordingly. Sarah approached the firing line with hands that trembled slightly, knowing that this moment would either validate her place in the program or expose her as an imposter. The test began with standard pistol shooting at 25 yards, progressed to rifle work at various distances, and concluded with precision shooting using specialized equipment. Sarah fell into the familiar rhythm that had sustained her through years of training: controlled breathing, smooth trigger pulls, and complete focus on the relationship between her intention and the target. When the scores were tallied, Sarah had achieved 100% accuracy across all phases of testing. More remarkably, her shot groups were consistently tighter than those of soldiers with significantly more experience. The SEAL instructors exchanged glances that Sarah couldn't interpret, but she sensed that she had passed some kind of unspoken test. Chief Thompson approached her after the session and asked about her background and training. When Sarah explained her unconventional path to marksmanship excellence, Thompson listened without the skepticism she had expected. Instead, he seemed genuinely interested in understanding how someone with no formal military training had developed such advanced skills. "Shooting is 10% technique and 90% mental," Thompson told her as they walked back from the range. "Most soldiers can learn the technique with enough practice. But the mental part, the ability to perform when everything is on the line, that can't really be taught. Either you have it or you don't. From what I saw today, you have it." The comment meant more to Sarah than any praise she had received in her academic career. This wasn't encouragement from a teacher trying to boost a student's confidence. This was professional recognition from someone whose opinion carried real weight. As training progressed over the following weeks, Sarah found herself assigned to increasingly challenging scenarios. The exercises were designed to simulate real-world missions where precision shooting would be critical to success and survival. Sarah learned to engage targets from concealed positions in low-light conditions, and while other team members conducted simultaneous operations nearby. One particularly memorable exercise involved a hostage rescue scenario where Sarah was positioned as Overwatch, responsible for neutralizing threats that might endanger the assault team. The scenario was conducted in a mock urban environment with role-playing civilians, multiple buildings, and constantly changing conditions. Sarah's job was to maintain visual contact with the assault team while being prepared to take precise shots at any threats that emerged. The exercise began at dawn and continued for 8 hours, with new complications introduced regularly to test the team's adaptability and communication. Sarah spent most of those hours lying motionless in a concealed position, watching the scenario develop through her scope while maintaining radio contact with the team leader. The physical demands were significant, maintaining shooting position for extended periods while staying alert and ready to engage targets. But Sarah found that her years of patient practice had prepared her well for this kind of sustained focus. The critical moment came during the final phase of the exercise when multiple hostiles appeared simultaneously in different locations, requiring split-second decisions about priorities and engagement sequences. Sarah identified 3 separate threats in a matter of seconds and engaged them in order of priority, neutralizing each target with single shots while the assault team completed their mission. When the exercise concluded and participants gathered for the after-action review, the SEAL team members who had played hostile roles approached Sarah with expressions of genuine respect. One of them, a sniper with 6 years of experience, told her that he had never seen such consistent accuracy under pressure from someone at her experience level. But the real validation came from Chief Thompson during the formal debrief. He announced to the entire group that Sarah's performance during the exercise had been flawless, and that her shooting had enabled mission success in several critical situations. More importantly, he noted that her calm communication and tactical awareness suggested she had the potential to excel at much higher levels of special operations training. The other Guard members in the program began treating Sarah with a new level of respect after that exercise. Initially, some had questioned whether she truly belonged in such an elite training environment, but her consistent performance was impossible to ignore. She had proven that skill and mental toughness mattered more than traditional military credentials. As Christmas approached, the training schedule intensified in preparation for a final evaluation exercise that would test everything the participants had learned. The exercise would be conducted over 3 days and would simulate a complex special operations mission involving multiple phases, numerous variables, and significant stress factors designed to reveal how each participant performed when pushed to their limits. Sarah spent her free time studying mission planning documents, memorizing maps and contingency procedures, and visualizing different scenarios that might unfold during the exercise. She had developed her own mental preparation routine that combined elements of meditation, visualization, and systematic review of technical skills. The approach had served her well throughout the program, helping her maintain focus and confidence despite being surrounded by more experienced soldiers. The evening before the final exercise, Chief Thompson found Sarah in the facility's library, where she was reviewing ballistics tables and wind reading techniques. He sat down across from her and studied her face for a moment before speaking. "You know," he said quietly, "when I first heard that a Guard member with 6 months of service was being included in this program, I thought it was some kind of administrative mistake. I figured you'd wash out during the first week of physical training, or maybe discover that shooting paper targets is different from performing under real pressure." Sarah looked up from her notes, uncertain where the conversation was heading. "But I've been doing this for 12 years, Thompson continued, "and I've trained with hundreds of soldiers from every branch of service. What you've accomplished here isn't normal. The way you think through problems, the way you handle stress, the way you shoot, these aren't things that can be faked or learned quickly. They're either part of who you are, or they're not." He leaned forward slightly, his expression becoming more serious. "Tomorrow's exercise is going to be harder than anything you've experienced so far. We're going to push you past your comfort zone and see what happens when everything goes wrong at once. Some very experienced soldiers are going to struggle with what we throw at you, but I think you're going to surprise some people." That night, Sarah lay in her narrow bunk thinking about Thompson's words and about the journey that had brought her to this point. 6 months ago, she had been checking out books about military history and dreaming about opportunities she thought were beyond her reach. Now she was preparing for an evaluation that could determine whether she had a future in elite military units. She thought about her parents and the pain she had caused them by pursuing a path they couldn't understand. She thought about her grandfather and his words about gifts that need to be developed. She thought about all the hours of secret training that had prepared her for this moment when she would finally discover what she was truly capable of achieving. The final exercise would begin at dawn on Christmas Eve, and Sarah knew that everything she had worked for would be decided in the next 3 days. As she drifted off to sleep, her last conscious thought was a promise to herself. whatever tomorrow brought, she would prove that she belonged here. Christmas Eve dawned gray and cold, with low clouds that promised snow before evening. Sarah woke before her alarm, her mind already focused on the day ahead. The final evaluation exercise would test everything the joint training program had covered over the past month, and she knew that her performance would determine whether she was truly ready for advanced special operations training. The exercise scenario was complex and realistic. A high-value target had been located in a compound in hostile territory, and the joint team would need to plan and execute a mission to capture or eliminate the target while minimizing civilian casualties and avoiding international incidents. The training facility had been configured to simulate an urban environment in a foreign country, complete with role-playing civilians, multiple buildings, and various complicating factors that would emerge during the mission. Sarah was assigned to Team Bravo, one of 3 4-person units that would work together to accomplish the overall mission. Her teammates included Chief Thompson, who would serve as team leader, Petty Officer Second Class Jake Martinez, a communications specialist, and Staff Sergeant Kevin Williams from her own National Guard unit, who brought expertise in explosive ordnance disposal. During the pre-mission briefing, Sarah learned that her role would be critical to mission success. As the designated marksman, she would be responsible for providing overwatch and precision fire support from concealed positions while the other team members moved through the target area. The compound layout included multiple buildings with overlapping fields of fire, meaning that her positioning and target identification skills would be tested under the most challenging conditions yet. The mission began at 0800 hours with a 2-mile infiltration march to the target area. The team moved through simulated hostile territory, practicing noise discipline and tactical movement techniques while carrying full combat loads. Sarah's equipment included her standard M4 rifle, specialized optics, communications gear, and enough ammunition for an extended engagement. The weight of the equipment was significant, but Sarah had spent weeks building the physical conditioning necessary to perform effectively while carrying a full combat load. More importantly, she had learned to think tactically while dealing with physical stress, a skill that proved crucial as the team approached their objective. The compound consisted of 5 buildings arranged around a central courtyard, with multiple access points and numerous windows that could conceal threats or civilians. Intelligence reports indicated that the high-value target was likely located in the largest building, but the exact location and number of guards remained unknown. Sarah's job was to establish overwatch from a position that would allow her to cover multiple approach routes while remaining concealed from potential threats. After studying the compound layout and consulting with Chief Thompson about tactical priorities, Sarah identified a position on the 2nd floor of an adjacent building that would provide excellent sight lines while offering cover and concealment. The position was approximately 200 yards from the main target building, well within her effective range, but far enough away to avoid detection during the initial phases of the operation. The infiltration to her overwatch position required Sarah to move alone through approximately 400 yards of urban terrain while avoiding detection by roving patrols and fixed observation points. She used skills learned during night training exercises, moving slowly and deliberately while taking advantage of shadows, building corners, and other concealment features. Reaching her position undetected, Sarah established her shooting platform and began the systematic observation process that would continue throughout the mission. Through her scope, she could see into several rooms of the target building while maintaining awareness of the surrounding area where her teammates would be operating. The intelligence phase of the mission lasted 2 hours, during which Sarah provided real-time updates on guard movements, civilian locations, and changes in the compound's security posture. She identified 7 apparent guards, 3 probable civilians, and several areas where the building layout differed from the pre-mission briefing materials. More importantly, Sarah noticed patterns in the guard rotations that suggested specific rooms were receiving extra security attention. She passed this information to Chief Thompson, who modified the assault plan to take advantage of windows of opportunity when certain areas would be less heavily defended. The assault phase began at 1030 hours when Thompson's team began their approach to the target building. Sarah's role shifted from passive observation to active fire support, requiring her to maintain constant vigilance for threats while being prepared to engage targets that might endanger her teammates. The first complication arose when a guard patrol returned to the compound earlier than expected, potentially compromising the team's approach route. Sarah identified the threat while the patrol was still 100 yards away from Thompson's position and radioed a warning that allowed the team to take cover before being detected. But the patrol's unexpected movement created a new problem. Their position blocked the team's planned approach route, and alternative routes would expose them to observation from the main building. Sarah studied the situation through her scope and identified a solution that would require precision shooting under pressure. She could engage the patrol from her position, but doing so would reveal her location and potentially alert other guards in the compound. However, the patrol's current position made it impossible for Thompson's team to continue their mission without being detected. Sarah made the tactical decision to engage, knowing that success would depend on neutralizing the entire patrol quickly and quietly. The engagement lasted less than 10 seconds. Sarah engaged 3 targets in rapid succession, using subsonic ammunition and a suppressor to minimize noise signature. Each shot was carefully aimed to ensure immediate incapacitation while avoiding collateral damage to nearby civilian areas. The patrol was neutralized before any member could raise an alarm or call for reinforcements. Thompson's team was able to continue their approach, but Sarah's position was now potentially compromised. She made the decision to relocate to a secondary position that would provide different sight lines while reducing the risk of detection by guards who might investigate the patrol's disappearance. The relocation required Sarah to move 150 yards through urban terrain while maintaining communication with Thompson's team and staying ready to provide fire support if needed. She completed the movement in under 5 minutes, establishing a new shooting position that provided even better coverage of the target building's main entrance. The next phase of the mission involved Thompson's team making entry into the target building while Sarah provided security overwatch. Through her scope, she could track the team's progress through ground floor windows while monitoring other parts of the compound for threats that might emerge during the assault. The critical moment came when Thompson's team encountered resistance on the building's second floor. Multiple guards engaged them from fortified positions, and the team found themselves pinned down in a hallway with limited options for movement or return fire. Sarah could see the tactical situation developing and realized that her teammates were in serious danger. Through her scope, Sarah identified 4 guard positions that were engaging Thompson's team. The targets were partially concealed behind furniture and structural elements, requiring precise shots that would neutralize the threats without endangering the assault team members who were operating in the same general area. The shooting sequence required Sarah to engage targets in a specific order based on their threat level and positions relative to her teammates. She had approximately 30 seconds to neutralize all 4 guards before they could coordinate their fire or call for reinforcements that would overwhelm the assault team. Sarah's first shot eliminated a guard who was moving to a position that would have given him a clear shot at Staff Sergeant Williams. The second shot neutralized a guard who was attempting to coordinate the defense from a position near the stairwell. The third and fourth shots eliminated the remaining guards who had been maintaining suppressive fire on Thompson's position. Each shot was taken from a different position within Sarah's hide sight, requiring her to quickly adjust her aim point while maintaining perfect accuracy under extreme time pressure. The entire engagement lasted less than 45 seconds, but it represented the most challenging shooting she had ever attempted. With the immediate threats neutralized, Thompson's team was able to continue their mission and successfully locate the high-value target. But the exercise wasn't over yet. Intelligence reports indicated that reinforcements were en route to the compound, and the team would need to extract under pressure while avoiding a larger force of enemy personnel. Sarah's role during the extraction phase was to provide cover for the team's withdrawal while identifying and engaging threats that might pursue them during their movement to the extraction point. This required her to rapidly shift between multiple target areas while maintaining situational awareness of her teammates' positions and movement routes. The reinforcements arrived as Thompson's team was exiting the target building, and Sarah found herself engaging multiple targets simultaneously while coordinating with the team leader to identify priority threats. The situation was chaotic and demanding, requiring split-second decisions about target prioritization and engagement sequences. Over the course of the 15-minute extraction, Sarah engaged 12 separate targets while providing continuous updates on enemy movements and tactical recommendations for route selection. Her shooting was consistently accurate despite the stress and complexity of the situation, and her tactical communication helped Thompson's